Casablanca, Morocco, Doha, Qatar. He is proficient in international business development, strategic marketing, product development, market analysis, etc., etc. He's going to talk about a new approach to making city mobility management more responsive. I have the floor.
Hello everyone, so thank you for the introduction. So today I will be talking a little bit about how wall sensing sees or how we see that we can make cities more responsive in terms of traffic management in this, or mobility management. So the wall sensing is a company that we are specialized on digitizing different sectors in order to provide operational tools. Okay. So I think that during all these sessions we have been talking about challenges, so I would like to just mention some of them. So I would say that that are appearing on cities. One is the growth of the cities. So in the last years and the coming years we will expect huge growth on cities that will address a lot of challenges like traffic congestion, climate change due to traffic, and also other industrial areas that are growing in order to grow cities. We need to drive innovation, so this is also a challenge in terms of cities. Social responsibility, so how we can integrate citizens with the decisions of cities and the growth, and of course trying to make them part of this growth. Okay, so this is, I would say that this are one of the challenges that we are expecting on the coming years. Okay, and when we are trying to address them, we need to think on how we will be able to interact between the systems and how we will be able to engage to the citizens. So I think I just plot this image of Dubai because I think that is a good example. So in the last 20 years, how it has changed. So in the early 1990s, it was, so I would say that we couldn't never imagine that we had this city today. Okay, so after 15 years, we had already a city with many complex systems, and if we look at nowadays, I would say that it's one of the most active and growing cities in the world. So all these challenges that we were addressing, it has been part since the beginning, because if the vision on all these challenges was not there, we would not reach on this stage. Okay. Of course, talking to governments, we have to deal with two main challenges, or let's say common challenges that are on the legacy, so the way that they are organized, the way that systems are built on over the last years. So we have legacy challenges, the stakeholders, so the way that governments are organized normally it's between departments, so this is important, especially if we want to start connecting things and operating them on a more smart way, let's say. And then of course is the economics. So normally cities, we have to involve fundings in order to be able to grow on these operations. And I would say that it's not only the way that we have to address these challenges on the legacy, the stakeholders, and the economics. It's also between one of the drivers is trying to improve on the communications between departments on the city. We need to break with the silos, because if not, it's very difficult to manage data, and especially if we need to improve on the operational parts of the city level, not from the system perspective, it's more from a city perspective. If you go more on the traffic, so the way that we see it, this is of course wall sensing, is that managing traffic, especially in smart ways, is trying to, based on non-expected incidents, we are able to react fast, based, and this will solve the non-expected situations on city. So this is one of the drivers that make that we need to connect things in a smart way. We need to open data in order to understand what's going on, what is the behavior of our city, in order to be able to react fast when something is happening that is not expected. To do so one of the most important things is to answer this question: what's going on now on my city? So if I stop now and I say, what's happening today in Dubai? Can I? So this is one of my questions. Probably it will be difficult, not because we don't have the information, probably the information is there, it's because the information is silent at this stage. So it's important that we are able to allocate all these multiple sources of data that are existing probably, if not, for sure the technology can solve it. Also, we need to try to engage citizens. So citizens are one of the sources of data that has more data at the end of the day, that can drive a lot of, or solving a lot of problems that are happening on a city. And with all this information, we need to be able to build, let's say, applications that can create or process data in real time coming across citizens and systems in order to be able to react on real time based on the different incidents that can happen on cities. So the way that I would say that we have been building this over the last years is trying to aggregate data. So I think that yesterday we had an interesting presentation that we were talking about how we could integrate data across a country, and that it was not only a matter of just putting data on a database, so how can I store it, how can I securize it. So all these factors is the way that we have built it. But unfortunately, it's not only a matter of having data. It's also a matter on how I can process all this data, how can I prepare it in order that in real time, city operators can handle them in order that they can take decisions. So this, I would say that is the next step. So it's not only on the data, it's not only on having expert teams, it's also in providing the proper information to the city operations. And how I see, or how I think that cities are siloed. So let's say that we can identify not only in the region, so I would say globally, easily the Department of Transport, the Police Department, Emergency Departments, Environment and Energy Departments, Public Work Departments, and many others. So all of them, they have addressed their challenges, internal challenges, by implementing systems across the different, let's say, services that they were providing to the city. So if we talk about transport, we have the bus system, or the transport system, the traffic light system, the metro system, the taxi system. So all of them, the way that it has been driven normally is trying to solve in a very expert manner and trying to solve each of these systems. But the way that we have been trying to push is okay, let's try to connect the Department of Transport in a way that it can manage in a proper way. But what about the Police Department or the Emergency Department? Also, they have their own systems. And maybe all these systems between them, if they are able to interact, for sure, it's a benefit for all of them. So at the end of the day, what we need to try is to, of course, building all the city control rooms that solve all these systems. It's also a matter to understand what kind of data we can have in more holistic vision for the city in order that the city operators can react faster and provide, based on real-time insights, information to the other city operators that handle the expert systems. Okay? So one of the proposals that we are coming with is trying to bring a system of systems, okay, that is not involved on managing the system itself, managing the hardware, let's say, is more analyzing data on real time in order to provide insights, operational insights, in order that I can react faster across the different departments. So this would be let's say a very simple example, or why we should not build a platform, let's say, that is able to read across the different systems. So here I just mentioned a few of them, because of course the list, it would be infinite, in order to track, predict, plan, and act easily the daily basis of the city manager. Okay, so and all of this, let's say that is under one system. So let's imagine that the city has a team, an expert team that understands what are these top challenges that we were mentioning at the beginning, and they understand that based on real-time analytics that we can have across all the different systems, and some of them, of course, cross-compiling data, in order that I can help the different departments in order that they can change their strategies, their plans, and even reacting faster on real time. Okay? So in this case, I was trying to show in blue a department, so 3 examples of systems that mostly a traffic department should have, but also that we have a lot of systems that probably the traffic department could be interested on having information on real time. So if we are able to have all this data on a single, let's say, environment, and based on this data we are able to create the visualization part in order to improve on what's happening up to date. So now, for sure, we will be able to improve on all the efficiencies that we are losing across the different departments. Of course, it's not only a matter of trying to connect and visualize. We need to, so just I wanted to list some of the things that it's important to take into consideration after some experience that we had. So we need to have a real-time user interface that is understandable. So really that non-expert operators can understand the data in order that based on specific insights they can take decisions, or they can create work orders. Of course, the system has to be able to create actions. So at the end of the day, it's not only reading, also we have to be able to also create actionable data across the different systems, because probably in scalable in the future, we have to make it automatic. So I would say that probably in the present, it's more a matter of trying to bring information to the operators in order that they can react, but maybe in the future we will be able to manage it live and in an automatic way. User management, I would say that this is one of the important part, because it's a matter of operating a city is not that you will have a single entity. For sure we will have operating teams across different entities. So it's important that the operations that are handled on the high level, we are able to limit what things they can see, or even what things they can act on, depending on the categories in the city and what is their purpose to be there in operating. Collaborating tools. So of course, one thing is the operations of the city, but also we need to help to other departments to share data in order that they can get benefit from other departments. So it's important that we are able to build a specific data that is useful for other departments coming from the high level operations. And of course, with the data analytics part, that I would say that is where we have been oriented more in the last years, that is having proper reports that show what's happening on the city. Without losing that this system should be data source agnostic. So really the systems that we have on cities are very wide, but the system that has to be on the high level cannot be only dependent on some systems. So really it has to be open enough in order to be able to connect as much systems as possible. Also, these systems, I always see them that it has to be a system that you can build applications on top. So for sure in the future we will be able to create predictive, creating simulation on what's going on based on the historical data, and also to create actions. So this system should be able to also grow. It should be a growing system that could be the tool of the city, let's say. That it could perform actions is important, so in a controlled manner. That could provide real-time visibility across all the different systems. So this point is what means real-time. So at the end of the day, on the manner that we are receiving data, okay, because as fast as we can receive information, we will be able to act faster. And then of course without, so this is not only the system of the city, it's the system for the development of the region. So at the end of the day, all this data, it has to be able to be shared not only for the city operations, it's also data that has to be available for other applications that can be run in other, let's say, for other purposes or for other added services for cities. So let's imagine that city operations can handle data coming from parking, but then we want to build an application based on parking, but not only one. We want that companies come and build applications for parking to provide services to the city. So the city will have the data in order to operate, but also they will share it in a way that other companies, or let's say the private, can start building other applications to add services on cities. So here I want to explain briefly a use case. Unfortunately, I didn't have a one in the region because we still don't have one here, but in the city of Bogota in Colombia, we have built, we have tried to connect, not build, we have tried to connect in around 20 systems on the city across different departments, and we have tried to help the city to improve on their decision making based on different KPIs. So the main challenge at that time, so this is a project of in 2014, it was the traffic congestion of the city. Bogota is completely collapsed each day, so, and it's a problem that they have since the 90s. It's a city of 10 million inhabitants, but in the last 20 years it has grown like doubling decade by decade because the issues in Colombia. So the way that we saw the proposed solution based on the vision that I just was explaining is that, okay, let's try to bring all this data together with these 20 subsystems that were coming from the safety, so from the police department, from the emergency, for the transportation department, in order that we can connect them and provide information on real time, create the proper reports, because in the past they didn't have reports, so really they couldn't know what was going on in the city. Also, we are building them maps in order to know where they have their assets and their teams. Okay, so this has been very useful for them to improve in their plannings. And we have, or they have built over this connected new public services based on mobile apps. Okay, so they have tried to build mobile apps not only to provide information to the citizens, also to receive information from the citizens. So very briefly, so let's go through some of these dashboards in order to understand what we are talking about. So let's imagine that from a high level perspective of city, so it can be traffic information, but let's imagine that I am the city mayor and I want to know what's happening today or what's happening now. So here we are summarizing in a very simple way. So 3 KPIs. One is the average speed of the city. So how is moving my city? The service level, so the capacity index of my city. So based on how it has been built, my city, if it's congested or not. And the third one, it would be the matching index. So if we compare my city today compared to the last month, we are performing better or worse. So here is, just with these 3 KPIs, we are able to know where are happening things that normally doesn't happen in Bogota in this case. So based on this and overlaying information coming from different departments, or a little bit what we are seeing on the map, the city is able to react faster based on non-expected incidents. Okay? So I think that my time is already, so I have other slides, but no, it's just going through different dashboards, so if anyone has any question, I am more than open to answer.